All right. Well, it's 8 o'clock according to my computer, and got a lot of information that I want to share with you, so I'm going to start. Before I do, though, I want to acknowledge that I'm hosting the meeting from the traditional territory of the Mississauga, the Mohawk, the Algonquin, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and more recently, the Métis people. It's an acknowledgement to remind us of our responsibility to our relationships and the ancestral lands upon which we live, work, and play. So thank you all very much for coming. I'm looking forward to sharing what I hope you'll find to be some really useful information. What I'd like to do is I want to start with giving you a little bit of updated information on zone membership and where we're at as of the end of December. Following that, I want to dive into the results of the club growth study that we're just wrapping up, almost completed editing interviews for that, and so on. And then finally, I have the results of a brief survey we did on assistant governors or area governors, however you phrase them. So for starters, I'll start by sharing my screen. And let's just have a look at where we're at as far as membership goes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the success track, the green line represents the membership pattern over the course of a year that we would need to see if we wanted to end up with a net growth of 0.5%. Okay, and you can see how it rises. The membership needs to rise to December because there will be a drop-off. There always is. And then again, rising again in June to account for the drop-off that will happen at the end of the year because people vote with their wallets and they choose for whatever reason not to continue on with Rotary. The yellow line represents our zone's historic average, and the blue line represents where we're at so far this year. And as you can see, we're ahead of our average and we're having a better year. Fairly healthily better than last year, although we still have a way to go. We're still tracking towards a membership loss at the end of the year, but it'll be significantly less, hopefully, than it was last year, where we lost over 1,500 members. What I also wanted you to see here is the success track for one of the districts, 6310, which is a bit of an anomaly. It's not the only district in our zones where this has happened, but it's unusual to see this kind of uptick at the end of December. And I would point out that District 6310 was the only one in our zone that grew, had a net growth at the end of last year. But I also wanted you to see this because there is part of the reason, if you look at the new clubs that have emerged since the beginning of the year in our zone, you'll see that two of them are in 6310. So there's a relationship between the clubs and membership growth. And overall, as you can see, we have five new clubs, a new satellite, and 2 new Rotary clubs. And I understand that a number of districts, a number of other clubs under development. And the last thing I want to share here with this is just for you to see how well we're doing, relatively speaking. 75% of our districts are outperforming historic trends. And look at this, 6 districts so far on a track to grow. And this large list here on the right-hand side, where growth is well within reach. So I would just strongly encourage you to continue doing what you're doing, because you are making a difference and we can act to turn things around. And then finally here, just a little bit about some things that we have coming up. The first thing is, and thanks to the innovative thinking of my fellow coordinator, Herb Klotz, who's adapted an idea from Zone 33 on how they're providing supports and building on the development of new clubs, and have been very successful. What we're going to look at doing is changing and tweaking the way we're doing it. And what we want to do is invite you as district leaders to appoint an innovative club advocate for your district. We're strongly encouraging you not to have that be your not your membership chair. And our zone team is ready. We have people ready to support the district ICA in a variety of different ways. We'll develop learning programs to help people understand the do's and don'ts of developing clubs. Forums for people to share success and so on. And of course, any other ideas that might be developed or identified by the districts. We want to really encourage you to take advantage of the support that the zone team has to offer individual club presidents and districts. I mean, we are in a position with all the individual club data that we have, but we can work with individual clubs and groups of clubs to understand what the data is telling them and what that might mean. We're going to be in a position to broadly share the results of the survey that I'm going to get into in a minute, and really hope that you'll take advantage of the opportunity to do that. We have a few invitations to participate in district conferences and PETs, and the zone team members would really welcome more opportunities to do that, because we think we have really valuable information that will be a benefit to you and your clubs. I'm just mentioning here support to area governors, assistant governors, which I'm going to talk about after. And then just a heads up, you'll be soon getting some information about an innovative pilot project that we're going to be announcing and inviting people to participate in shortly. So let me stop sharing that and let me move quickly into the study. So just a quick reminder of the first survey that we did last year, where we looked at clubs that had grown during the pandemic. Our criteria then was 5+ membership growth. We sent a survey and we identified 55 clubs in both zones 28 and 32 that grew during the pandemic. And from that, we were able to focus on 5 attributes that those clubs shared. Not necessarily all of them, but most clubs shared most of them. Strong leadership. They were engaged in many events and projects. They were visible in their communities. They had active and intentional member engagement, and they had clear goals and a growth plan. So this time we wanted to take a stronger and deeper look. And so what we did is conducted a survey of clubs across the United States and Canada, with the cooperation of all the zone coordinators in that area. Criteria this time was at least a 10 membership growth over 5 years and growing in at least 3 of the past 5 years. We sent the question to the past presidents of those clubs and conducted 13 interviews. I'd point out that we did not look at new clubs. These were clubs that had been around for 5 years or more. And we got responses from 85 clubs that had grown consistently over that period of time. And some important things have emerged that helped refine what we learned before. But before I go any further, what I'd like you to do is to listen to Donna Barrett. Donna Barrett is the past president of the Rotary Club, King Rotary Club, a club that grew from 21 to 35 members over the period of this study. Listen to what she has to say.
I decided as the president, we would have the entire club would be a membership committee, and I would divide it up into subcommittees. Focusing on retention, I had 2 committees. One was called Reach Out and Touch, and they kind of focused on the well-being of members, and they came up with a buddy system, so paired everybody up. And so if your buddy was not there, you contact them and have lunch every once in a while or whatever you wanted to do. And the other committee in retention was Surprise and Delight. And we had lots of games or fun activities. And the very favorite one, I think, of everybody's, we did show and tell. And a member would come and they would bring something, and just like kindergarten, but they would show something that meant a lot to them and tell about it. And we learned so much about the members that we didn't know. And so those 2 focused on retention. And then I had Rotary Recruiter and highlighters, so that they would continue to look at ways to highlight our club. And the 5th one was called Explorers, and they were to explore the different types. And they focused in mostly on doing a satellite club because of those young professionals who said they wanted to be part of Rotary. They meet in the late afternoons after work, and I think that's been a success.
So what's important about Donna's comments is that she's a really good example of somebody who took initiative, who wasn't constrained by the ways we usually do things. And she really is just a positive example of how leadership has a real impact and had an impact in these successful clubs. And it just speaks to the opportunity that the rest of us have in our own clubs. So what did leaders overall focus on? They focused on effective governance. Their clubs were well run. They focused on active and intentional member engagement. They had a dynamic, meaningful service, strong public image of being well known in their community, and finally, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And all of these areas of focus worked with and around each other. And so let me dive into these in some more detail. First of all, for those of you who might be curious, because this is something that was of concern to me, look at the diversity of club sizes, in particular at the top, the small clubs. Just because you have a club of only 7 members doesn't mean you can't grow. It depends on leadership. And it depends on being able to focus in some, if not all, of the areas that we're examining here. And then you have 40%, 26 to 50, and then all the way up to a small number of 100 members or more. And then when we get to last year, you see the changes that took place to many more, which you can't see more than 100 members, but a significantly smaller number. Obviously, none of the clubs have 7 members anymore, but within that small range. The other important thing is you've listened to Herb and I talk a lot about attrition and attraction. And what's really interesting here is overall, the average attrition within these clubs was 12%. And as we've talked about, if you get attrition in a club of 10 to 15%, that's normal. Yes, there are clubs that have a lower attrition than that, but life happens. And it's not unusual to see 10 to 15%, and it's not something that ought to be alarming. But what the difference here is this number. It's the extent to which their attraction rate outran their attrition rate. And there are 2 key reasons for that. One is they created an environment that people wanted to be part of. And 2, they went looking for people, which I will talk about more later on. So what does effective governance comprise of? a planning process for growth, leadership continuity, intentional membership focus. So planning, they plan for growth and set goals. Look at the number, 81% have a planning process for growth. Yes, there are some that didn't, but the significant majority of clubs plan for growth. More than that, they update them regularly, at least quarterly, 20% of them, which is phenomenal, or annually. So it's important. They didn't just create a plan, they worked on the plan and they kept the plan alive. And they established annual membership goals. Membership was a priority, goals were a priority. The old saying is true, if you don't know where you're going, it's pretty hard to tell when you get there. Leadership continuity. 89% of them had a president-elect designated at least a year in advance. But look at this number. Almost half of them had one almost 2 years in advance. They were that well organized that they were able to designate people that far in advance. And you can just appreciate the impact that would have on continuity and stability and the ability to plan and set reasonable goals going forward. And then, no surprise, 92%, effectively all of them, had a membership chair in the club. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later on, but most of them, it was more than just a one-person operation. They were intentional in focusing on membership. Membership growth was at the top of mind. They talked about it constantly. It was something that came up regularly. They assumed that membership was everyone's responsibility. They talked about it regularly at club meetings on their weekly agenda item, and so on. It was a part of a conversation. Who do you know? Who do you know from this church or that school, and so on. So they really kept it up there as something, a focus that was living and alive, so that people knew it was top of mind. And what's active intentional engagement? First and foremost, highlighted in yellow because it's the number one, great meetings and strong friendships. Over and over and over again, people talked about how much they liked each other, about how much they enjoyed working together on projects, about how much fun they had as friends in their meetings and in service. Their meetings were consistent, timely, structured, and flexible at the same time. They focused on engaging and keeping new members engaged and saying thank you to their members. So what does that look like? So 70% of them, 76% of them meet weekly in person, but 65% of them still use hybrid or virtual technology. The number of people who attend virtually has decreased, but a number of clubs talked about how they continue to have members from far away as part of the clubs because they could use virtual technology, and of course, making use of the technology to invite interesting speakers to their meetings. And 29% created a satellite club as an alternative Rotary experience. One of the key reasons Donna Barrett's club grew was the process of engaging her members in the way that she did. Was it resulted in the development of a satellite club for younger professionals who could not make their meeting time. So they established a satellite club. What's interesting about that number is, to the extent we understand it, it's roughly 5% of clubs across North America that established a satellite club. And so look at the significant difference here. These clubs understand it's an opportunity to expand the diversity of offerings they have for potential members. So engaging new members, a lot of them have an orientation process. They have a way of bringing people on board and getting them engaged quickly. They take time to let people know what the club's accomplished and they formally recognize members' time, talent, and contributions. So what service consists of? Signature projects, which I'll describe in a second, and projects and fundraisers, including community members, ongoing and active service. So signature projects are projects where more than 50% of the club is involved in doing it. And I'll tell you, some of the projects that people talk to are really big, as in engaging thousands of members of the community. So we're talking signature in a very significant way. So 86% have a repeating signature project every year, and 83% have a signature fundraiser. So that event is a key part of the club's identity. 87% invite community members to their projects and their fundraisers. One of the past presidents from Texas said, "This is the secret sauce." And what the clubs do is they see and understand that participation in service from community members who are not yet part of Rotary is the ideal opportunity to inspire people to become part of the Rotary experience. And then 2/3 of them hold events to attract new members. And I just want to really emphasize how strongly this whole aspect of inviting people to participate and reaching out to people for partnership opportunities, to join them in projects and so on, was a priority. It really, really enhanced the dynamic experience of current members and made the club that much more attractive to potential members. The service is ongoing and active, 22% 1 to 3 times a year, but look at these numbers here. 25% 4 to 6 times, 14% 7 to 9 times, 39% 10 or more times a year. One of the people that Herb interviewed the other day said that they had 30 projects last year. All right, so these are clubs that see service as a priority. Rotary is a service organization, but they live it, they breathe it, and they're engaged in doing it. Strong public image. They're using the media tools that are available to them, and they're focusing on member attraction. So, as we talked about from the last survey, I think this is identical slide from the last presentation from the last survey. They're visible in the community and they have a strong public image because they understand it's not just doing, it's being seen to be doing. But how do they do that? This was of real interest to me. So 95% use Facebook, 21% use Instagram, very, very little uptake on any of the other tools being used, social media tools being used. Facebook really, really, really ranked high in how people spoke about letting the community know about it. 3/4 of them use a club website, keep that updated as a vehicle for communication within the club and to the community. But this was of real interest to me, is the number of them that continue to use traditional local print news outlets. That tended to be in smaller communities where those traditional media seem to continue to do well. And as one of the persons talked about it, I mean, they're often that outlet, that newspaper is often looking for news stories and really welcome contributions from Rotary about who they are and what they're doing. So they use public awareness to focus on attraction. So the events are held to attract new members. Many members sponsor new members. It's not, we did talk to one past president who has a unicorn in her club that is responsible for all of the new members in the club. But that's rare and unusual. And quite frankly, I don't think that's sustainable over time, because what happens if that person has to leave, moves away, or whatever. So the sponsorship and the engagement of new members is a club activity. And as we talked about before, inviting community members to participate in the projects. That really is an opportunity for all of us. And then this last thing that really, it didn't come out so strongly in the survey, but through the interviews that Herb conducted, as often and not unbid, we did ask about DEI, but it came up in the course of people's responses and talking about what they did, is how important diversity, equity, and inclusion was to the growth of their club. They were intentional about it. From the club, the senior citizen club president recognizing for the club to be sustainable, the average age of the club had to drop from over 65 to around 50, which it has. So it's an intentional focus on the issue of diversity, on the extent to which the club is reflective of the community and what the community looks like. And that could be whether or not all of the churches are members of the club, whether all the diversity of professions is represented in the club. And it goes beyond just skin color and religion and so on. And then finally, most importantly, it's not just reaching out to diverse groups of people, but ensuring that the environment that remains, that they are coming into rather, is welcoming to them. So I'd like you to meet one more person, and this is Marianne Vallejo from the Rotary Club of Vancouver Mountain View, which started the survey period with a membership of 18, and I believe the number now stands at 51 or 52. And I'd really like you to listen to what she has to say about what it means to be a Rotary leader.
For me, it is servant leadership. It is more of me helping other leaders to take a step to serve in the community through Rotary. And for me, Rotary leadership is really the four-way test. You cannot go wrong if you just follow what is our four-way test. And secondly, Rotary leadership is really serving myself, my community, and my family. I didn't know that Rotary would have a big impact on me as a leader. Rotary leadership has grown me into a person that I won't stop being a Rotarian, because it gives me the opportunity to help other people to serve, help other people to lead, to show more about the good character based on the four-way test. Integrity, fun, smiling always is still a Rotary leadership. And yeah, it's really more on the servant leadership.
So just for your information, as I think I mentioned, we're still in the process of editing the remainder of the interviews, and those will, just like we did the last time around, be inserted in the presentation. The presentation is going to be made available once we have all the bugs worked out and final notes and everything done for everyone. So, I mean, I have a minute now. I'll take a few questions or comments on that before I move on to the next one. If anybody has anything they'd like to ask or say, Lauren, go ahead.
Regarding Rotary Club of Mountain View, it's an ethnically based club which has a really great connection with a couple sister clubs in the Philippines, and that's how they get their service for internationally based projects. And I really do strongly recommend for a community, especially an internationally based community, is to find those sister clubs in other countries.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Anybody else? I can't, just speak up because I can't see everybody. No. Saying nothing. All right, let me just move on then to the AG study, and then we'll open. Yep.
Sue Carpenter has her hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I can't see any of them. Right, Sue, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just to comment on the social media, we actually had someone come to a talk to our club about using social media, and at the end I did ask the question, is there any point in still using local newsprint? And she said, in actual fact, in our area in Cochrane, they did do a survey and they asked people in the community where they get their news, and actually 80% of people still get their news from the local free newspapers.
So thanks very much. Yeah. All right. Anyone else?
No other hands up at the moment.
Okay, so let's do the AG survey that we did. So this survey came about as a result of a focus group that we had done last year to now what just happened?
Can you start the slideshow? There.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, I don't know. My screen just went black. This is not my technology night tonight, obviously. So let's try again. All right. So this came about as a result of a focus group that we had done last year with a sample of AGs from both zones 28 and 32. And a number of interesting things came out in that conversation, but it occurred to us before we move ahead on making any recommendations or trying to do anything that might be a good idea for us to actually ask more people about what they thought. And so we invited districts in both zones to participate. 16 did by giving us the names of their AGs. You can see we sent the survey to 288 AGs, and 63% of them responded. So we were very pleased about that level of response. And just very quickly, what did we learn from it? So this I thought was very helpful and very useful. There's a real even distribution in terms of the length of time that they had been in the role. Pretty well even mix between 1, 2, and 3 years. A fair number of them having served in the role before or in other districts. And this is the most important question, in my opinion. Did you receive orientation or training before starting the role? 40% said no. And I would like you to think about that for a minute. I want you to imagine in your business that you hired somebody to do a job, but you didn't bother to tell them what to do. How effective would your business be? And I think that that's an important issue. And what ended up happening throughout the comments, we could see that far too many of, excuse me, far too many of the AGs were left to figure out what it was they were supposed to do on their own. With the result being that would lead to inconsistent support, not just within the district, but from district to district. And as you can see from the sample comments, only after the being accepted, there was no job description and so on, although some people did talk about the training being good. But what really leapt out is the positive side of all of this was these were, many of these people just took it on their own to figure out what the role was by doing their own research, going to the RI website and so on. But that's a real concern. That's not a high enough number. We're given a job description. This is more positive in the sense that that they're at least handed something in terms of what their general responsibilities were. But again, you can see from the comments there is suggesting room for improvements. And again, I'd like you to look at the last bullet. This has come up a number of different times. The position changes from a little from year to year. You know, we still have a bit of a problem in Rotary where the district governor really can change what's happening and what the priorities in the district are. So this is much more positive. People felt confident that they have the tools and resources they need. But although, you know, again, as I mentioned before, a lot of them went and got that information on their own. And when you dive into the comments, you know, they did comment about feeling a little bit ill prepared. And I like the last one, you can find almost everything in my Rotary. Do you feel prepared to support clubs with membership development? Yes, they do. Again, some areas for improvement. Not all AGs thought that membership development was their responsibility. Some people thought that that was a responsibility of the membership team, not them. And there were also a number of comments about the extent to which it was a challenge to work within different unique club environments. So we came out of that with a few recommendations. What we're really encouraging you within your districts to do is to review your AG orientation and training policies. Many districts have got this highly organized with much in place, and many of those districts have offered to share those resources. So I would be more, if you're a district that wants to do something about that, just reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to connect you with one or more of those districts that have gone through that process to save you the time and effort. We also encourage you, some districts have got an AG coordinator. It's organized in different ways in different districts. We did notice that one district called it a dean. But the key point is that it's a person assigned specifically to the AGs and the support of the AGs, and we think that's a great idea. Again, the comment about ensuring linkages between the AGs and the development of membership, particularly in helping clubs change and grow, and ensuring continuity, greater continuity from one year to the next. And this last recommendation, I'm putting here, and I really welcome comments or feedback. If you have any thoughts on this, please enter them in chat, and then I'll open it up for discussion as well. What we're wondering is whether or not you think that there would be value in us creating a position tentatively called an AG facilitator. And that person would be responsible for working with groups of districts and creating and supporting regional networks of AGs to help them learn and share with each other. They could offer regular, monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, whatever made sense for a particular region, information sharing and learning opportunities, and or develop other resources that might be identified by districts, AGs, and so on. So I'd really welcome feedback on what you think of that idea. It is not our intention to create bureaucracy. The reason for calling it is a facilitator. It's to help ease things and make things easier for you. But we don't want to do it if you don't feel like it's something of value. So I will stop sharing and invite you to comment. And
well, that's great, Doug. That's Nigel Bayless here from 7815 membership director. That's great information. I mean, that's good to hear about the AGs, and I liked someone made a comment in the chat about a training officer for new members in a fast-growing club. And we're lucky enough, we have about 6 people in our membership committee, so it's sort of subdivided. One to be a welcoming person to make sure the new members are connected, and one actually to help with the training, like to get on the website and make sure they can log in and stuff. But this is great information, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to do that and share it.
All right, thank you. Roma, I see your hand.
Yep, thank you very much. Good to see everybody. So I think an AG coordinator would be a great position, but I'm not sure at the zone level. And the reason I say that is because from what, at least from our district, the AGs are more the business, I want to call them the business people, getting down into the weeds about, you know, numbers, data, club issues, challenges, that kind of thing. And I would think that that would be unique to each district. From at least from our experience, what I really find important is our membership team. The last 4 years, we've actually grown our membership team so that at the district level, we've divided it into regions which align with our sectors or our, which align with our assistant governors and work with our assistant governors. I'm a little concerned though for next year. Our district governor is actually getting rid of the membership team and having one person at the district level kind of doing the data analysis and leaving it up to the clubs when we've had such a success rate. And he's putting the assistant governors now in charge of membership as well, where I think it's actually 2 different tracks. But the AG role is, to me, very, very, much the club nitty gritty, so to speak, to help them the survival, I guess, in other methods besides only membership. It's kind of been my experience.
Thanks, Roma. Your point's well taken, and districts vary sometimes significantly in how they see the AG role. And so, yeah, thank you. Anybody else?
Not seeing any other hands at the moment, but one other comment that was made was that this kind of initiative, Brent was saying he supported this initiative, and it was a little bit like CDS for DGs, that kind of model to do that. And now Brent has his hand up, so there we
And
go.
Virginia had her hand up too.
Okay.
All right, Brent, and then Virginia.
So I do like this initiative, and I agree that, every district is unique, but I like the idea of expanding the horizons of AGs to hear from others and what other districts do. And so looking above and beyond what we sort of get focused on within our own districts, I don't think is a bad thing. We're always trying to spread the wings and have AGs learn more about the role, and to hear it from other people in different circumstances, I think is a good thing. So it's a support opportunity. I don't see any downside.
Okay, thank you, Virginia.
I'm actually pretty close to the same thing that Brent said, with just a little addition, and that is that quite often, while I might not do exactly the same thing you're doing, but it sparks an idea, and oh, maybe we'll try something like that. And I think there's a lot of you might not be the same, but if you can get some new ideas, then I think that's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Kathy.
Hey there. I'm wondering how many districts use the resources on the Learning Center and on Rotary. I know that I've sent all of that information to our AGs, how to be an AG, some of your duties. I don't think it talks about any reporting, but so there are resources. Do districts tap into that and pass that along to their AG teams?
Yeah. Yes, they don't. No, they do.
That's clear.
So let's just say there's a diversity of responses, but I will make just to repeat the point that I made earlier. There are a number of districts that really do have things well organized. And if there's anybody here that really wants to work on improving, I'll connect you with them. Just ask Margie and then Jan.
Yes, so at Great Lakes Pets, for the last 2 years, we have done an AG training. Jeff Coyle, DGE for 6290, has been very instrumental in helping with that. But we use the Rotary International Learning Center as well to develop the curriculum. But we did a 3-hour session that we presented just for AGs at Pets. So it was like a pull-out program for AGs at pets, which helped the district governors so that they could have them trained about what they should be doing at their pets. And then they could go on and then fine tune it for what they wanted to do, what wanted them to do, especially with membership as well. So if you would like that, pets, Great Lakes Pets curriculum, I have it.
Okay, thanks, Margie. Yeah, and there were just a quick comment. There were a few people who did talk about how critically important it was to have the AG's part of pets. Jan.
Yeah, so District 5040, we have a learning and development team that meets probably about 9 times in the year. And there's 16 to 18 people on it. The entire G team is on it, plus, membership foundation, the thing. And we also make sure we have an AG rep who is there to find out what all is happening, whether it's membership foundation, anything to do with training, learning, and development, so that she can coordinate information from our group to the AGs, anything that they need to know. And our district will be doing AG training on February 11th, and we do more AG training at Pacific Northwest Pets. They have, I think, 4 sessions set up because we have 10 districts at Pacific Northwest Pets. So we find the more our AGs are trained and the more they know, the better our district runs. And yeah, there's millions of ways of doing it differently. So, but we can all learn from each other, and we're happy to share our stuff.
All right, thanks, Jan. Okay, any other comments? Yeah, Bala, I see your hand.
Thank you, Doug, for sharing so much of great information. One thing we tried different this past year as part of our planning is, even as early as last November, not 22, but 21 November, we created a set of virtual meetings for all our presidents-elects, AGs, and other leaders. It's one of those things when your kids are in second grade, third grade, tell them what you tell them and tell them what you told them type of thing. And one of the modules was on membership and foundation and so on. In fact, it was kicked off by our own Drew Kessler and Valerie Way. For all of those leaders were there, including Deidre. But the membership module primarily focused with our regional membership officer, Diana Edwards. And what that did was that helped our not only AGs and presidents to think 6 to 8 months ahead of when they were going to start their leadership, and 2 to 3 months before the pre-pets and followed by pets. So we found, at least I found, that talking to the AGs and the president-elects as part of designing this curriculum, it's important to help them kind of take the path of several of these iterations and not just have them show up at pets, because as you all know, in pets, we kind of give them 8-foot, 10-foot hose, fire hose with all the information. That would be not only information overload, but difficult to comprehend all that. So let's see how things go forward, and the rest of our half year still ahead. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Bala. Any other comments? All right, well, my interpretation of the comments is that there's support for us to at least invite people to participate. So we will look at that further. Our next steps is we will circle back on this and continue to follow up, and you'll hear more. Okay, so in conclusion, I don't tell anybody, but I committed a significant faux pas by neglecting at the beginning of the meeting to call on Director Drew and incoming Director Chris. So don't tell anybody I did that, because if you tell them, I'll be embarrassed. But anyway, so as a closing set of comments, can I invite Drew to make a comment or two?
Doug, I will not tell anybody, I promise. So thank you for that. And really, I'll be very brief in my comments. I had the fortune of hearing this presentation by Doug's colleague Herb last night. And it's just incredible the work that both Doug and Herb and their teams have put into putting the survey together. And really, it shows from an analytical standpoint what a successful club looks like and what our steps and things that we all need to be doing to be focusing on the number one priority in Rotary, and that's our membership specifically here in North America. Said it last night, I'll say the same thing tonight. I know I'm preaching to the choir, so really just thank you for all you're doing in the effort of growing our membership. And again, Doug and Herb and team, thank you for putting this together and really bringing this forward to our upcoming pets and our Rotary world. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris if she wants to say a word or two, and everyone have a wonderful evening.
Chris?
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Drew. First, I want to commend Doug and Herb and their entire teams for taking the time to do this research to share with all of you, because it was a daunting task, I'm sure, but it's very valuable information. And as Drew said, our number one priority, internal priority in Rotary is membership. And it's just a testament to the fact that, all of our leadership at the district level, whether it be your governor line, your AGs, your membership chair, all of us really need to remember that membership is a top priority. And we all need to be thinking about how to attract members and engage our current members. And as we heard earlier in the presentation, membership is all of our responsibility. So I just encourage you to share this message and encourage all of your Rotarians to get involved. And thank you again, Doug and Herb and your teams for a very valuable presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Drew. And just to emphasize, I know Herb will agree, this was a team effort. We had a lot of people involved in doing this. It wasn't just Doug and Herb. All right, well, with that, I will stop recording and say thanks to all of you for joining us. We will be doing another session in April, and we'll give you lots of warning about that well in advance. Have a great